Now you think three-cylinder engines these days and you probably think of Triumphs. Well, there is another bike around with a three-cylinder engine, or there was, Laverda. They had a big three, introduced in 1973, and then some brothers over in Hereford called Slater Brothers, they tuned one, they called it the Jota, 1000cc three-cylinder engine. Also brought out a 1200, which they called the Mirage, but you can bring it bang up to date yourself and end up with something like this one. This Spondon frame beauty, and I've just knocked his little badge off the front, but we'll stick that back on. 1116cc on this one because it's been bored out. There goes his little sticker again. JMC swinging arm, it's got Spondon alloy tank. Looks an absolute picture. It doesn't look at all dated, does it? So it might be a classic bike, but a future classic perhaps in this one. Now that famous British name Norton, they did something in the early 80s which was quite revolutionary, and that's not a crummy pun because they introduced a rotary engine. This was seen in police bikes more commonly on the road. They also made a road bike called the Commander, but you didn't see too many of those. But they did race them. And Trevor Nation, he was British Superbike Championship twice, I reckon, on these. Here's an example of the F1, their race bike, and another one there. You can't really see the engine, it's buried down in there. But it was nominally 600cc, and they used a twin rotor engine. Just over here, if we can get it on shot, there's a bit of a customised job here. Don't think much of the paint scheme, but you can see the engine in all its glory. Big air-cooled twin rotor job. But down here is the interesting bit, if you're a bit of a mechanical anorak like I am. But this is the rotary engine, the internals of it. You just see the one rotor here. There you've got the inlet, so there's no valves on this. There's the inlet, here's the rotor. This spins round, so if I can spin it, well, I'll turn it that way round. So sucks in there, creates a depression, sucks in the mixture, goes around there. Up there is the spark plug, compresses it, goes bang, then carries the gas round here and squirts it out down there. Now, one of the big problems with these, not only was this shaft very complicated, as you can see, but it also had this rotor here, this three-cornered rotor, and these were the seals. So no piston rings on this, but actually seals, and those are the things that used to wear. And so used to use a lot of oil. And not that reliable at the end of the day. Great pity, but a classic experiment. Now, if I asked you to think of a bike name, would Lilac be up there in those names? I very much doubt it. Well, the Japanese didn't think like that in 1959 because they produced this, the Lilac 250. Beautiful piece of work it is. Look at these lovely castings on here, integral gearbox and crankcase. 250cc, air-cooled, push-rod overhead valve. Very, very modern. Shaft drive to the rear wheel, as you can see, very much like a BMW. Swinging arm rear suspension. Silencers and exhaust are very much like a BMW. And so is this seat here. Early BMWs had a seat like this, independently sprung. But a very neat little bike and a bit of a rarity. I've read about them, but I've never seen one before. And you could say the same for this. This is a Yonggi. Now, I would have thought from the look of the name on the tank that is Japanese or Chinese. Well, it's not, it's French. And just to give some idea of the way people restore these bikes, this one was actually found on a lay-by on a dual carriageway near Chester, would you believe? But the guy found it and tracked down the original manufacturer and all the rest of it and rebuilt it. Little 250cc two-stroke going back to 1953. An amazing piece of work. Looks a fairly classic dashboard. Well, it does, except for that up there. See that? Boost. That's the boost gauge because this is a turbocharged bike. A Kawasaki from 1984, GPZ 750 turbo. You can't see the turbo, it's down at the front of the engine. Just see a bit of the pipe work there. This one's absolutely immaculate. But all the Japanese manufacturers played with turbos in the mid-80s, and Suzuki did one too. And this is it. This is Suzuki's slant on a turbocharged bike. The XN85, just to mislead you, because in fact this is just a 650cc 4 with a turbo stuck up at the back there. But turbos didn't last for long. Unlike this one next to it, Suzuki's Katana. You might well have seen quite a few of these around if you can hear me over the PA. This styling, in fact, was Euro styling, done by a German company called Target Design. But it still kept a certain sort of modernity to it. As you can see all this edge styling all along here. So it kept it nice and modern. GSXR motor in there, and they did a 550, 750, 1000 and 1100, which is this one. And to me, it still looks a fairly modern bike. Now, Yamaha, of course, they made the name with two-strokes in the road world as well as the racing world. But then in the early 70s, they decided to make a step into the four-stroke world, and they came up with this, the XS 650. Parallel twin, overhead cam. very much in a traditional style. It could almost be British, except this had the standard Japanese things of more reliability and being oil tight. And it had a very sound following, very sound engine, gave a good performance, good reliable, simple bike. Now down in front of me here, it's a CBX double overhead cam, 24 valves. Why 24 valves? Because this is a 6-cylinder. And looking down here, the rider's eye view, very unusual to see cylinders sticking out from under the tank. Absolutely massive. But when this was introduced in 1978, it really was quite something, a big 6-cylinder air-cooled motor when everyone was just getting used to 4 cylinders. But even though this one might be getting on now, people don't always leave them alone. This one next to me here, this one's been done up very neatly, 916 exhaust system put on, and also a TDM fairing at the front. Looks very professional and very neat. And there's yet more. Look at this one for a start off, or sort of a second off as it were. Single-sided swinging arm on there, and this was homemade, home crafted. And it's also got a 6-pipe exhaust system up there, like the pipes of Pan. Just see the pipes running across the back of the bike. I understand there's no baffles in there either, but we won't tell anyone. This one next to it as well, this beautiful creation here, another homemade exhaust system. You can see them swept up there. Bodywork off a VFR 750. The tank made up from Fireblade tanks, 2 of them, but it makes a really neat job and puts a little bit different on there. Different swinging arm, of course. And then wrap it up with this one, a Moto Martin, which were a French company who made a lot of CBX specials with their frames. And there it is, that finishes it off. So just because you've got a sort of old classic bike, it doesn't have to stay that way.